I was afraid to say, oh my God, my husband cheated on me. Like I was so embarrassed. And by storing all of that emotional trauma and anger, it will make you sick.
Yes.
And especially if you don't talk to people or you're shaming yourself or you're just keeping it all bundled in. And that's what I did for the first 3 or 4 months. I was just storing it. And what ended up happening to me is that I ended up storing everything in my right shoulder and I could not move my shoulder. And then I began getting shingles and I had shingles for a very long time. Finally went to an acupuncturist and she says, well, let's heal your mind and your emotions. The rest of your body will heal with you.
Hey, guys, it is Allison. I am the host of your show, Allison Answers Mission Awake. I cannot wait to sit down with you today and go over how we are going to crush the mediocrity in your life that has been plaguing our society since the beginning of time. I cannot wait to have a real deal conversation that includes intelligence, fun, excitement, and real actionable steps to make a real difference in the life that you're living now and making it into something you can be damn proud of and excited to live. Sit down, put on your damn seatbelt, and get ready for the ride of your life. Hey, guys, how are you today? It is Allison from Allison Answers, and I have a great guest today. Her name is Jenny Alday Townsend. She is a successful entrepreneur who has made it her mission to help others navigate the challenges of marriage, business ownership, and balancing both. After facing her own struggles in marriage and successfully overcoming them, she has developed a deep understanding of the complexities of relationships and the importance of effective communication. Jenny has since created the Stroke It Guide, which provides practical tools and strategies for individuals looking to improve their relationships. With a compassionate and empathetic approach, Jenny empowers her network to take control of their lives and relationships and create a fulfilling and happy future for themselves. We all could use that, right? I'm going to read what Jenny describes herself as, which I love that with a bio. She says, I'm happily married with a resume titled Jack of All Trades, with a mission to break barriers, turn the naysayers into fans, and live my best life. My cup went from full to empty overnight. Years later, it is overflowing. I was always naturally high on life. The part of me that has been brutally beaten reminds me to focus on the small wins and those present. Life is not guaranteed, and obstacles are opportunities for growth. I embrace every morning with a cup of positivity, with a side of gratitude, and a can-do attitude. By the time this book is published, my life could be different. That is the beauty of life. It is a constantly changing experience, just like the weather. I encourage you to grab a raincoat and rise to the occasion. I love that statement. That's so cool, Jenny. While I was following my passion to launch my dream company, my husband got lonely and found someone to stroke him mentally, emotionally, and physically. If you are trying to determine if you should end or mend your marriage, let's chat. If you are considering giving up on your career or your spouse, let's connect. Giving up on your career for your spouse, also let's connect. I am here to show and tell you can have it all. I just love this new guest. I haven't met her yet. You know, we're gonna have our side conversation, but I really am looking forward to getting to know her and all that she has to share with us. So without any further ado, I'm gonna meet with her behind the scenes and bring her on. Hey, guys, how are you today? It is Allison from Allison Answers and Logger Counseling Services. As I mentioned before, we have this wonderful woman, Jenny, that I gave you a whole background on. But what I want you to just frame in your mind is what you're going to experience right now. I think this is a woman who is going to be able to take you to a place of peace if you're moving to a higher level, or if you're experiencing something very difficult, or if you're having a trying time with your spouse or a partner. This is a woman who can share with you how to climb out of difficulties and how to shine and become even more after the struggle. I love having her on the show primarily because she has the wealth of information and heart. It's not information, it's heart to share the experience, strength, and hope regarding not only marital difficulties and triumph, but also business, the climb, the climb, and then you fall off the cliff and then you climb back up and you're like, I suck. And now, oh, I'm a hero, whatever. So I just cannot wait to hear everything that you have to say, Jenny. And I'm so happy to have you on the show. Welcome.
I'm excited to be here and share the story and the journey.
Yes, yes. Would you share with us, because I definitely want to go in two directions, and I think it will happen just organically as we speak. But could you share the story about how you were having an affair with your business and then lost your marriage and how you recovered and succeeded in that? I would love to hear that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm excited to share that story with you from discovery to recovery and how it impacted me personally and professionally as well. First of all, I'm super happy and I have an amazing company. I have an amazing marriage today. It took a lot of strength, hope, and a lot of internal peace to get where I am today. But nearly 10 years ago, I got married and then I started a company, which is a music school where we do music lessons for all ages, any level. I am not a musician, nor an educator, nor a mom. And those are all things that people think that I am because I own a music school. I am none of those. I am a person that is passionate about creating opportunities and helping people and connecting. And I had been working on this business plan since 2009. And I didn't launch my company until 2016. So when I finally got the opportunity to quit corporate America, tell everybody to go, see you later, bye Felicia, and all that, and start my company, I just became obsessed with it. It became my love, it became my life, it became my passion.
I have to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Because I have a question because I didn't know this. I didn't know when I knew that you, I thought you were musical. I thought you were a musician.
There was a void in our market that I didn't even know. But when the real estate market tanked, nobody would hire me. So I had to wait tables. And then I met all these musicians that wanted a place to jam and hang out. So when I was in my final semesters of college, I created a whole business plan based on that. But then it led into a child-based business, which is an amazing business today. And I had no idea what I was going to be doing. And a teacher of mine from grade school came into my music school and she goes, honey, I'm so glad you found your way in life, and tapped me on the shoulder because I was a C student. No one thought I would see my way to CEO.
This is such a cool, I'm dying to know about that, but I want to hear the rest.
Okay.
We could have a whole podcast on just that. Is somebody you took your skills and you applied. This is just, I love this story.
Yeah. So jumping back in of just being obsessed with my company, it became my life. And in 2018, I was meeting with one of my mentors and he's like, you're struggling, you're drowning, you need to quit your company. And I was like, quit? Like, I can't quit my own company. And so basically I took a 1-month sabbatical. And during that time frame, I found out that I had no life outside of work. I had no relationships. I had no passions. I had no hobbies. I literally had nothing. And I did not have a marriage. I had discovered that my husband was having an affair with a coworker, which I had speculated for years, which I'm sure anyone in my shoes probably, if you did discover it, there were warning signs that we all ignored. Yeah. And so that happened in 2018. And I have been on a road to recovery since then. I've had a lot of highs, a lot of lows, and I'm happy to share a lot more of that.
Yeah.
I cover a lot of this in my book and through the recovery process of looking within and understanding who I am and what was I trying to do and who was I trying to become and be and what was it all for?
Yeah.
And a lot of it had to do with my upbringing or what I saw myself and what I wanted to become and really only focusing on that. A lot of business courses and a lot of business coaches are going to tell you to become really super disciplined and really super focused. I became so focused on becoming so successful with my company that nothing else mattered. And if you have nothing to lose or nothing, I was like, I risked it all. And when I risked it all, I didn't really realize I was risking my personal life and my marriage. I just meant I didn't have any money to lose. So understanding that difference.
There's a lot of entrepreneurs who listen and there's a grind. And we all talk about the importance of remembering your family. And Ed Milet talks about that a lot, Andy Frisella. But when you took that sabbatical, what made you recognize that it was happening? Was it that you didn't have anything to distract you from it, or was it that?
Well, it was just really clear. I was home, for the first 2 or 3 years of starting my company, which they were the early years of my marriage as well. I didn't like cook dinner, not that you need to cook dinner to be a good wife, but I just wasn't home. And through the process, I learned the importance of the five love languages by Gary Chapman. When my husband and I separated, he bought me that book. And I really dived into that to understand who he was and what he needed. And we had different thought processes as far as like the love languages. It was like quality time. And he was a personal touch. Like he needed to be cuddled. He needed to be snuggled. Like sitting on the couch together was not quality time and it wasn't what he needed. That's all I needed, but because my love languages weren't personal touch or quality time. So really diving into that and understanding who we were and how we drifted apart and going down that memory lane provided a lot of clarity. But it was taking the time. Like I was very much hurt. I was very much offended. I really wanted to be like, bye, Felicia, see you later. We're getting divorced. And there was parts of me that did do that. But a lot of people that I spoke to really encouraged me to kind of slow down and take my time and lean into who I was. And during that sabbatical, I realized a lot of things, but we as entrepreneurs, we're so busy trying to make things happen and, dial for dollars and create these amazing initiatives to grow our companies. And we're so busy creating and doing that we just forget about ourselves and really who we are and what we want to do. So it was just it was a life lesson that I am so grateful for because I was able to learn that life lesson, the quality of life and the people that you have in it at a really young age. However, I caused a lot of pain and suffering and I got really sick and there's a lot of things that happened within that period of time. But I've always been someone that has always looked at obstacles as opportunities. And I just really leaned into that. And it takes the right mindset and it takes a lot of work to get you there. So I wasn't always that way through the process. And there was a lot of dark days as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. What comes to my mind is with the five love languages is that, it's so important it's a sacrifice. I don't want to say it's a sacrifice, but we tend to love the way we want to be loved. And, as entrepreneurs, we can so lose sight, like quality time in the business is what we want. We want to be driven and, very task oriented. And not everyone's like that, but I think it's so easy to lose sight and there's like a blur, like our family's it's like blurred out, you can't see what's happening.
And we sometimes take them for granted and we don't understand how they're supporting us. So when my husband and I discussed me quitting my job and actually starting this, I had a 1-3-5 and which is like, where do you want to be in 1 year, where you want to be in 3 years and where you want to be in 5 years. And that was always the focus. Like I just needed to get to year 5 and then everything would have fell in place. And it was set up to be that way professionally. Personally, it wasn't. And it became a struggle. But I think understanding like who we are and what we need was the biggest game changer for us. Going back to the childhood, like my parents, they put a roof over our head and they fed us. Like that was love. So I didn't really need a lot of nurturing. I didn't need a lot of, stroking or personal touch or, that quality time. I was just like, I just need minimal. I'm very much like masculine, like just feed them and give them some sex. Like that's all I just needed a little bit. But what I also wanted was him to be present and because I'm words of affirmation, tell me he was proud of me and basically support me and come to the lunches where they were acknowledging my success, come and like watch me get these awards, all that stuff. And he didn't because he was working because I didn't pay myself. So he had to go to work and he had to bring home the paycheck and all of that. So he was like, I was supporting you. Like I paid for everything. I was like covering all the bills while you were, dropping hundreds of thousands of dollars to start this company. So where he felt like he was supporting me and I didn't see it that way. So that was like a really, really big break in our relationship and trying to make all of it happen together.
That's such a common issue we see in marriages. We'll see where, a man will be doing all these actionable steps that are really, they're experiencing it as support. And the woman is like, wait, you're not supporting me. And just your willingness to be able to hear him and understand him is to your success, right?
Yeah, and view it from his perspective
Yeah.
as well. So there was a lot of resentment and there was a lot of jealousy, which led him to actually cheating on me.
You jealous?
He was jealous of me because I was getting to fulfill my dream of starting a business and doing this. And I was working for free. I was being awarded. I like when we would go places, people wanted to talk to me. His family cared more about me. Like I was like the star of the show all the time. And he became resentful and jealous because at the end of the day, he was funding this whole operation for me. And that's where it just wasn't good.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense. So as you discovered all of this, what was your climb out? Because I know that you're happy together
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I first discovered it, I mean, and that's the thing is I was talking to someone the other day, but they're like, but you knew about it. And I was like, I did, but speculating it and it being real are two totally different things. And then it's like you have the several years of fighting, being told you're crazy, unsure, like not having any control over certain things. And those are the times that you need to be like looking within, like what's wrong with me? But you're so busy looking at them, what's wrong with them and why are they doing it instead of like looking within. So like once it happened, it was a shocker and I was going through a lot of pain. But instead of looking at him and everything that was wrong with him and pointing the finger and being like, you're an ass. And well, I said a lot of mean things to him, but I decided to take ownership and look within and said, how did I show up as a wife? How did I show up as a friend? How did I show up as a life partner? And I started really looking at myself in the mirror and I realized I was not showing up for anything. I was not part of our marriage. I was not present. I was not home. I wasn't loving. I wasn't supportive. I wasn't listening to him. Like everything was about me and everything was about my company and everything was about what was going on in my world. And I totally forgot that he was part of it.
I have to say, Jenny, one of the things that I would say a challenge that marriage counselors have is being able to, I'm just going to use men and women, the same way in this conversation. But so if a woman is cheated on, very often what we see is that it is so difficult in that crisis moment, either way, man or woman, for them to see where they're not participating in the marriage. And that is like the number one goal to help them to climb out. And I've had people who absolutely would not look at themselves because they felt like they were betraying themselves. And the only way to heal that marriage was for that to happen concurrently with the guy owning his stuff. So like in all marriage counseling, what we always want to do is we want to have the person always look inward. Everything is us.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of self-awareness and it takes a lot of time. So I had to do a lot. Like I was already naturally high on life, glass half full or overflowing. Like I just loved life. I was just so grateful. I had never had anxiety ever. I didn't have anxiety for the first time until I was like 38 or 39 years old. So I was like, so it was, I had to pull myself, number one, out of the hole. I had to check my ego, had to ask myself, what do I really want? Where do I want to be? And who do I want to share my life with? And so I had to go to a lot of like meditation classes. Like I'm like type A personality. I was like, I'm never going to be able to sit here for 5 minutes. It became 20 minutes, it became 30 minutes. And I started going down a healing journey and I was doing things that I thought were stupid or like voodoo or were never going to work for me. And they ended up providing a lot of peace and clarity and stability in my life and allowed me to begin kind of looking within and taking ownership and caring for myself and loving myself in a way I never knew I needed.
Yeah.
And through that journey, I was able to love myself first. And then I began to forgive myself and become less angry because I was super angry with myself. I think we all look back on like how we didn't handle a situation or how we should have or would have. You start living in that past tense. And so I had to like start thinking about the future. And my husband, through this time, said, I don't want to focus on the past. We both made mistakes. I want to focus on the future, like the present day and the future. And that's what I had to do in order to recover from this pain personally as well. So it takes a lot, but But if anyone is listening and they have been cheated on or they've been betrayed or they're going through a hard time, the best thing we can do is look within and take ownership of our choices, our tone of voice, our attitude, our outlook, because most likely it's us that has the problem, not the other person. And once we start taking ownership of our own happiness and we start loving ourselves, number one, we're not going to expect as much from other person. We're not going to, treat people a certain way. We're going to have so much love within ourselves that we're able to give that in the future.
Yeah. And that mindset shift, and I can hear what happened for you. You already, I can see you're already self-aware, right? Even though, but you were focused on the business. But I feel like this thing that we're talking about, I was just doing a training yesterday on the 12-step program, and running the people all through the 12 steps. And one of the big things in that program, they talk about, being sure to sweep your side of the street. Mm-hmm. And, I was explaining how someone could do this massive thing, like we're discussing, somebody betraying you, cheating on you, right? And I was sharing and explaining that no matter how high level the situation is, and it doesn't mean that they didn't do it. It doesn't mean that they didn't betray you. And I think that's the thing. So I say, listen, we'll put that on the shelf. Yes, you were betrayed. Yes, that happened. However, the only thing we have any control over is our internal world, right? That's it. So it's like, and what we do with the betrayal and how anything we contributed. So it's so interesting to me because we want to be angry, and the whole world is encouraging people, women. I'm sure that you've heard people, and I don't feel this way at all. I think it's the foolish things of this world that shame the wise. But, it's like, it doesn't match the masses, but we don't want to. We crush that shit. We don't want to be the masses. But I'm sure people saw you as, I hate even saying it out loud, like a fool, like,
yeah,
so not true.
Right. So I want to address the two things. First, I want to start with the anger.
Yes.
So my parents divorced not once, but twice, because my mom had not one affair, but two affairs. And my father became very angry, and he's been angry since that time, which was over 30 years ago. But when my father found out about what had happened, he said, don't let the anger take over. Once that anger takes over your body, you're never going to get rid of it. You're never going to be able to get rid of it. And when he said that to me, I was like, I don't want to be an angry person. I'm a loving person. And I didn't want to change who I was, and I didn't want to be angry. So if you are listening, do anything and everything in your power to not become angry, because you will become angry. But how you deal with that anger is going to be life-changing. So it's either you're going to get stuck in that anger, or you're going to be able to pull yourself out of it. And I want to encourage you to pull yourself out of it and surround yourself by positive people, positive places, and remove the things that trigger you. Talking about the whole shaming. So when this happened, I talked to people, and I didn't talk to people and say, hey, here's my dirty laundry and I want to bash my husband and pity me. I was talking to people because I wanted to find people that had been in my shoes before. And I found a lot of people that had been in my shoes before, but they just never went public, and they never told anybody because they were so afraid of people judging them and afraid of a lot of shame. And I did have people lose some respect for me because I did stay. And I was just talking with my mother-in-law about this as well the other day. And the people that I care most about don't.
Yes.
Like feel that way about me. If anything, they admire my decision. And I had a young lady actually come to me about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and she goes, I want to apologize to you. And I was like, oh, what? And she's like, I really want to apologize because I judged you and I shamed you when you told me you were going to stay with your husband after he cheated on you. She goes, you're such a boss babe. You're such an entrepreneur. Like, you have an amazing company. You're an amazing woman. You could have anybody in the world. And she's like, I totally judged you. Like, you were weak and you were poor and you were just small-minded and just really insecure. And she's like, that's not who I thought you were. And I was like, oh, well, I'm sorry you felt that way about me, but thanks for apologizing. And she goes, I just discovered my husband was having an affair not too long ago. And she goes, and because of you, I'm going to make it work and I'm going to forgive him and I'm going to, work on our marriage instead of throwing in the towel. So I want to thank you for inspiring me and helping me with my marriage. And if you wouldn't have shared your story, I probably would have threw in the towel and got divorced. And I'm looking forward to having a marriage like yours.
Oh, I love that. You know what it reminds me of? We have this, I think it's almost like this opposite, like it's opposite day perspective on strength. And to me, the real strength is standing in something and looking at yourself, because it would be easier to walk away. What can happen is that you have this trauma or whatever, and then you have one long emotional response. And it's almost like this, there's this snapshot that happens in your memory neurologically. And then it's like this, it reverberates. It's almost like a spasm that just doesn't stop. And you become the angry person. I'm a widow, and widows tend to be angry.
Mm-hmm.
And I have had to fight to not be angry at myself, at him, the whole thing. And it is so important because it can take over. I have felt that happen. So thank you for bringing that up.
You're welcome. And by storing all of that emotional trauma and anger, it will make you sick.
Yes.
And especially if you don't talk to people or you're shaming yourself or you're just keeping it all bundled in. And that's what I did for the first 3 or 4 months, because I was afraid to say, oh my God, my husband cheated on me. Oh my, I was so embarrassed. And it was and then it was just, you just deal with all the emotions. But anyways, I was just storing it. And what ended up happening to me is that I ended up storing everything in my right shoulder and I could not move my shoulder. I couldn't sleep on it. I'm actually dealing with a little bit of that pain right now because my book is coming out that shares a lot of this journey. So I'm kind of reliving a lot of it right now. But I couldn't move my shoulder. And then I began getting shingles, and I had shingles for a very long time. And I went to doctors and I kept going to doctors. And I finally went to an acupuncturist, and she says, well, let's heal your mind and your emotions. The rest of your body will heal with you. And I think that was super powerful for my journey and my recovery. So many times we just want to take a pill, or we want to just take medicine, or we just I have a girlfriend going through a divorce right now, and she's just getting high all the time because she doesn't want to face the emotions or face the pain or live it. You got to face it and you got to work through it, because it's going to make you a healthier. It's going to make you happier. It's going to make you have more peace. And leaning into all of these different therapies, sound bath healing was super, super great for me as well. And my acupuncture did NAET. She did all these things where you can release these emotions from your body and your mind, where you can start to heal the mind, body, and soul.
Yes. I kind of think of it like, blowing your nose or going to the bathroom, that it needs to move through you, because it can just get lodged in all of these places, like energy and motion, right?
And another thing, so as you're going through this emotional roller coaster, you don't always want to talk to everybody about it. And you don't want to just keep calling your family and talking about it. Or it's just, you don't want to have the pity party. So I, after probably a year, started journaling. I got a notebook and I just started writing all these emotions. I started writing letters, not that I sent any of them, but I literally poured all of these feelings into a journal, which is now going to be my book that's going to be coming out very soon. So you just never know where this obstacle or this, detour in life is going to lead you. And if you become very fluid and you become very open and willing and flexible and forgiving, it can lead you to the most amazing places. And not only do I have my book, I have my podcast, I have amazing marriage, but it also, this obstacle pulled me off that hamster wheel. So if there's entrepreneurs listening and you think you could never step out of your business, this type of this type of event will pull you out of your business. And what will end up happening is it will either sink, or everybody in your organization is going to step up and flourish, and your company is going to become more profitable. You're going to develop work-life balance. You're going to create boundaries that you never thought were possible. And you're going to be able to lean into having a really great personal life and a really great professional life. And as you probably know too, it's like a roller coaster. Your personal life is just amazing, but your professional life, whether it's your career, your business, is stressing out, it's just not happy. But by creating those boundaries and leaning within and taking the time for yourself, you really can have it all.
Now I always know that when someone comes on the show, it's just incredible how, I'm not even saying, well, we're so synced, and one of the things you just described, I talk about with my business that I spent so many years just loving and investing in my employees and just really feeling and just investing so much in that. And I never realized what a return I would get, because when my husband suddenly died, that was 3 years ago, I couldn't work. So I was forced out of my business, and I didn't care, about my business anymore. But what was amazing to me was that those people, never underestimate the power of your absence and what it allows others to do. And these people, they held a meeting. They were like, we're going to supervise one another. And if you see garbage, you pick it up, because, my husband took care of everything. He was a contractor, he did the buildings, whatever. They just ran my business. And the one woman who did it, she basically came in as a receptionist and then became the person who ran my business because of this tragedy, right?
So 100%, I had hired a young lady. She was 18. She was working at a local grocery store down the street. I hired her in October, and she was literally working like 15 hours a week, just working, I think, like in our little lobby area. And then I had hired another individual that first week of January, because he wanted to do film and photography. And I was like, I really don't have a role for you, but you seem like a really great guy and you have some expertise that I may need in the future. 1 month later is when I discovered the affair. So literally, I left my business in the hands of a new hire and an 18-year-old. And when I came back, like a month later or so, that 18-year-old had created a full-time job for herself. She basically outlined everything that we needed to do for the company, everything that was wrong, and everything that we could do to change it to make it better. And that other individual took it from old school to new school. And they took me from red to black. And literally, they just like took over everything. And like, if I would have been there, I would have probably been like, no, no, no. And I would be like, well, this isn't how we always did it. Or I don't know if that's going to work. And I would have second guessed them. But since I wasn't there, they had the confidence and they had no choice but to take ownership and do whatever they felt was the right move. And they didn't need my permission. And they were able to soar, they were able to fail, they were able to do all these things that would have not happened if I would have been there, because I wasn't there to judge them or tell them no. And by them believing in themselves, they took action and they believed in my mission, and they both worked for me for 3 years. They actually still work for me on my podcast and my book and other projects as well, even though they don't work from the music school anymore. So yeah, I mean, never underestimate your people, lean in, and the people that are meant to be there will step up, and the people that are not will leave, and they'll leave quietly.
Hey, guys, how are you? Isn't that amazing? This story that we're hearing on this show is great. I want to just give a shameless plug of my book. I would really want people to have a good look at my book and to understand what it really is. I used to be ashamed to plug my book, and then I realized, how is that right, to keep the information, the 30 years of experience that I have, the 8 years of education, the trauma that I grew out of and learned how to manage, and how to manage emotion, all the training I've had in neuroscience and quantum physics. How can I keep that from the public? So it's not, I used to think it was like something I should, be humble about, but being humble is silly when you're keeping things away from people that they need. So what I want to tell you about my book, and I hope that you do get it, because I think it will really help you. I've gotten a lot of tremendous feedback about my book, and that it's really, really of great value to a lot of people. And what it is, it's an interactive read, and there's inside of it, there's journal entries. So as I'm teaching and going through the book and teaching you how to create the life you want by understanding how you're wired, how your thoughts, feelings, how your words, how thoughts are things, and the neuroscience behind it, and how we are programmed from the time we're 0 to 7 years old to live a life of mediocrity or a life of poor design because of meaning that we attached to events when we were children that just became our programming. What I want to tell you is that there is a way out, and it's a simple way. It's very simple. I believe in the simplicity and the grace in healing, and that it doesn't have to be a big work. So I would love it if you'd get my book. It's a best-selling book on Amazon, and it's my first. And I encourage you to get it. It's called The Wake Up Call, an interactive read for building the life you want. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Thanks so much for being on the show, and let's get back to it. How have you kind of overcome just feelings of jealousy? Or I just had someone on the podcast, their whole mission is about jealousy, saying that we're all jealous and to face it. And so I'm just curious, how do you manage that?
Yeah. So with me, I would say that I really, when it came to everything that happened, I was never really jealous because I don't know. I just was, jealousy was not something I would describe that I was going through. I was more resentful and I was more like, didn't you believe in the 135 and didn't you want to, have the house on the water and like where the boat, like everything that you wanted, we were going to have that. And I was actually just really resentful and really upset because we sold our house and then we had to move into a condo. And then I was more upset about the financial losses that we had and how our plan got stalled. And, by 2020, we were going to have a house on the water. Well, we would have been able to do that pre-COVID if we didn't have these hiccups in 2018 because of the track record we were on. So I would say where I was coming from was more resentment and more anger because of our plan that we had established as a team and as a couple, we weren't working towards. When it comes to my husband's a really great man. He comes from a really, really great family. I trust him. Like even after it, there was some things that I was like, okay, well, you need to call me when you get to the office because they still work together. So I still had to deal with that. And then he had to quit his job. And then it was like, oh, I got to add myself to payroll. And now I got to support you after you cheated on me. Okay. There was a lot of variables.
I hear it. Yeah.
For me, it was more the financial aspect of it all and the financial losses. I just had a plan of when I was going to, be at a certain level. And so, we've got to that level together as well. Through the whole process of the recovery I was able to remember the man that I married. I was able to remember the qualities. I was able to remember that kind spirit and that loving person. And then I was able to understand him, like why he did it. It wasn't about him not loving me, or it wasn't because he didn't think I was pretty. It wasn't that kind of things.
Right.
It was what he needed to feel fulfilled and to feel like a man. Because I'm such a boss babe and because I was so masculine, I needed to lean into my feminine side. And I needed to know how to love him and how to love him to where he felt that love. Me just telling him I loved him wasn't enough. He wanted to feel needed. Men want to feel needed. And I remember it was September of 17 and the affair happened in 18. I looked at him and said, I don't need you. And his response to me was, I want you to need me. So leaning into that and understanding what that meant was a game changer as well. So, through the process, it's just really trying to identify who he is or who he wanted to be and how he needed to be loved and treated, and then myself as well. So I think leaning into understanding what we all need as far as love will help. Yeah, jealousy wasn't part of it. And I'm grateful that it wasn't.
I really like how you're describing yourself because, you were in the masculine, right? This is such an important aspect of relationships is just being able to lean into and allow ourselves to be feminine, even though we're doing masculine things. We so need to have someone take care of us as a feminine. We are receptive, just even by the shape of our bodies. Like we are supposed to receive and accept that. But I was thinking when you were saying you were focused on the 135, but it sounds like possibly you shifted into, because there's also like I write out once a year, I'll do the 135, 10 too. But in regard to emotionally, spiritually, relationally. So like the 1-3-5 for my relationship, right? Well, I'm not in a relationship, but 1-3-5, like emotionally, what would I want to happen? My light just automatically went off. 1-3-5, where would I want to be connected with my person then, you know? I'm sure
What-
you
What's
get that. Yeah.
what's so interesting too is I've always had a 1-3-5 for my business and for myself, but I never had one for our marriage.
Yes.
And I never had anything as far as our relationship or how we were going to grow together.
Yeah.
And I think that's super, super important as couples is that, you have some long-term goals, but usually it's like one person's growing and one person's going to be like leading that. And the other person's going to be kind of trailing behind and supporting them in other kind of ways. But there was no plan of us growing together as a couple, or it was mainly just, like I said, I was living my life. He was a component of it.
Yeah.
So I had to incorporate him into my world. Like I'm not the only one living in this marriage. It's both of us. So really leaning in and understanding each other's needs and how you both contribute to an amazing marriage and a home and to each other is super, super important. Those are things that I learned later. I wish, I was just joking about this, like at the bridal shower, there's like a popsicle stick, it's like where you're going to go on a date or like the best advice or like the best pie to make to your husband to love you more. And I'm like, why didn't they put like really good like marriage tips on there?
Right.
So I want to go back to one thing that you were just talking about too, as far as like the 7 seasons of life or the 7 steps of life. So in 2019, I don't know if you know of Jennifer Dawn, but basically she's the creator of the best planner ever. And this planner has like all these goals, and there's like those 7 things that you just mentioned, along with the focus wheel. And I got that planner and I booked a house on the beach by myself for 3 days. And I was like, before I enter 2020, I need to know that I'm either going to forgive or I'm not going to forgive. I'm either going to commit to my marriage or I'm not going to commit to my marriage. And I really have to figure this out because I can't keep living in limbo. And it was going through those steps that you were just talking about, understanding those goals, like your spiritual, your giving, your love, your family, your financial goals, that provided a lot of clarity and peace. And they allowed me to make a really great decision of moving forward and to enter, 2020 with forgiveness as a goal and my marriage as a goal, where I was like 100%, I'm going to make that decision, not be teeter-tottered. And I think a lot of times too, when you go through this, a lot of people were like, well, I'll just see how it works. We'll just see how the 6 months goes, or this year I can always just like get out. But I think making that commitment to yourself first and then to your spouse will lead you to a really successful marriage. And you're going to have all these great things happening spiritually. And if you're loving, you're giving, like all of those things are going to just fall into place. Number one, obviously it starts with the plan.
When you describe boundaries, I am happy to listen to you because I'm going to tell you why, because being a therapist all these forever years and then training therapists, and I don't really see clients anymore, but I have this kind of issue with the word boundaries because I feel like most boundaries, I can't say most, very often boundaries in my field are taught through defense and fear and all of these things. So I try to describe to people, and I love how you describe it, that when you're really aligned with yourself and you know what you want and you know what you don't want, you basically already have the boundaries. You don't really have to be like throwing them out everywhere. You can be soft on the outside. You can have that core strength on the inside that's just groundedness. You're not fighting. So anything you struggle against owns you. There's no fight involved. So I loved listening to you because as soon as I hear the word, I'm like, oh, boundaries. But then I heard you talk and I was like, oh, I love her description. So if we have time, I would love for you to share anything you talk about it. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So I think that what I realized is I wanted to lean in and serve myself first. I think that's the first and most important thing, is serving yourself first. And once you begin serving yourself, whatever you want to listen to on the radio or whatever you want to wear, whatever you want to eat or wherever you want to go, or your standard of living, whatever it is that serves you is what I lean into. And whatever serves me is what I lean into as well. So, and understanding the goals that I had, like, so there was a lot of times where it was like, yeah, I wanted to go and be with family, or I wanted to go to happy hour with my girlfriends, but I knew that I wanted to finish the book, or I needed to do something for myself so that I was not stressed about it. I didn't have anxiety. So I think just like leaning into what you want. And once you start leaning into what you want, other people are going to take note of that and they're going to be really understanding. I never had to say that I didn't want to do something because of something. Like people just naturally I don't know, maybe it's just the way that I said it. I will say that I did create boundaries with people that were not serving me in a positive light.
Yeah.
Or if I was talking to people on the phone and I was just listening to them talk and complain and like the same story over and over again, I started reducing those conversations. And how I did that is I didn't answer the phone as many times. And we all feel guilty. It's like, oh, they're calling. Don't feel guilty. That person is taking up precious energy and time of yours that you necessarily may not have to give, or it's just not worth it for you. It's not going to serve your soul or your heart or anything. So I reduced picking up the phone. I reduced the amount of texting, or if I did pick up the phone, it was in the car when I was going from point A to point B, where I had a stopping point. That has been a really huge game changer because there's so many people that'll suck the life out of you. My husband and I were just listening to something, and there's like it's like people are like batteries. They're either going to fuel you or drain you, right? So I think that's probably the biggest thing is getting with people that fuel you, reducing the people that drain you, and that's one way to create a boundary that's going to serve you in a really positive way. This is one tip.
Yeah. And you talk about like in regard to boundaries is like how to manage all the different things. Like if you have to do, like you're describing wanting to go with your friends somewhere, but then you have to write your book or whatever.
Mhm.
Like I guess managing the entrepreneurial life and those 7 areas, like how, yeah, right? It's a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's one of our biggest, I don't know, struggles, or the thing that we try to really manage is how to manage our time, be well planned, and also, you know, have great relationships. It's,
Yeah. Well, as far as like the time management, just because I run a music school, I have a podcast, I'm writing a book, my husband and I own a laundromat, and then there's like the time for like tennis and hobbies and the time with my husband. So I actually use block schedule. So I have the same schedule every single week. It's color coordinated, and I have it where it's like growth and connection, financial, as well, and then like the goal, the task list, right? So there's so much time that I spend. My schedule is divided into thirds. So I have my me time, which is me, which is going to be a third of that time. And then I have like my financial like output, which is the third. And then I have growth and connection, which is a third as well. And what that does is it serves your mind, body, and soul. And it serves not only the relationships that you have with other people, but it also serves your financial and your future goals as well, which I used to always say, oh, work hard, play hard. I'm like, nope, I'm going to play hard and I'm going to work really, really smart. So kind of leaning into that as well. And I have a free download that helps you with navigating or creating that block schedule. And I think something else that has been super powerful for me, and one of the things that I love helping people with, is really making sure that people in your life know that you love them, appreciate them, and that they're valuable. And this goes back to my marriage where it failed because I didn't make it known that I valued my husband and he didn't feel that he was loved. And so that's one of those reasons why that marriage fell apart. Well, when I wasn't taking care of myself, that's why I fell apart, right? And then I use the same strategy. It's known as the stroke it strategy. And it's all about stroking people's
love it.
egos and validating them. But it's also, I use it in the workplace, making sure my employees know that this one task is a major impact on the organization. Making sure I Slack them, I appreciate them, writing them thank you notes. And then at the same time, they stroke me. Not literally, but they
Yeah.
show up on time. They lean into the vision, they lean into the mission, they're being innovative. And then it kind of goes into friends and family. But I will say that through this whole process, from discovery to recovery and the entrepreneurial life and all those things, the people in your life are the most important people, like in your little circle. And if you just keep your circle tight and you take care of those people, you're going to just be so happy and so fulfilled. And you're going to just have a lot of grace in your life, which is a word I've been leaning into the past year, is like just allowing there to be more grace and not be so judgmental. It's all these expectations.
Could you share with the audience, when you describe those thirds, how would you describe the me, for you, and what would you identify those things as?
Yeah, so the me is that's me waking up in the morning and I snuggle with my husband every single morning. So that me is me rolling over, him snuggling me snuggling him, and then getting out. I go and stretch. I do brain dumps in the morning. I just like write down all my thoughts so I don't jump on my phone or jump into email. It's like, no, just make a list of it, get all those thoughts out because when I'm doing the meditation or when I'm rolling around on my yoga mat, I have like all these things popping in my head. And a lot of them are really great ideas. Or like, oh, this is a good podcast title, or this is conversation, or I just have all these light bulbs going off during that time of like silence and peace and stillness, which I just love that time. So I want to make sure I get that time every single morning. And then, it's going to walk with my husband or going to the gym, or I was playing tennis until recently. I have tennis elbow now, so I'm not able to do that. Having a healthy breakfast, having a really great cup of coffee, not on the go, in a coffee mug at my house. That's a way to serve myself. So those me things. And then just getting to do what I love, and that's connecting and hanging out with individuals and leading my team. So
Yeah,
actually a lot of self-serving.
no, that's wonderful. I was just wondering how you would identify that, and it's really cool. I brain dump too. Yeah, and we do forget. I don't think we're forgetting now. I think we believe it is that every way that we can give and serve ourselves, the way you're describing, and grow every day, honestly, into a better version of ourselves, we are giving ourselves to other people. That's what we do. And like, don't you want the best version of us?
Yeah. Well, and two, I've
We're distorted
people,
to call it selfish. It makes no
yeah.
sense.
Well, and
It's
you
selfish to,
inspire them. You're inspiring these other individuals to do the same for themselves. And where they think it's really super challenging at first, they're like, oh, this makes such a big difference. And it takes other people a little bit longer. But by doing that for ourselves, we're helping others and we're encouraging others to do the same. And I really believe that if we did more of that every morning versus rushing off and doing the to-do list or what we have to do for work, our society would be happier. We wouldn't have so many mental health issues. We wouldn't have so much depression. We wouldn't have all these pill problems. I mean, even today with the kids and everything. So I feel like, if anything, like just do it, not only do it for yourself, but do it for society.
right?
Yeah, 100. So have you heard of the 7 Ps?
What are they? No, I've
Okay,
never.
so like the 7 Ps. So when I was working corporate, it was like prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance.
Oh, I love it. I've never heard that. No.
So my P's, which hopefully I get it right, but my 7 Ps are prior proper planning promotes prosperity, peace, and I forget the final P, but it's like or positivity. So positivity, prosperity, and peace.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to planning it. And if you take the time to plan what you want to happen, there's more of a chance of that happening than not having a plan at all.
It's like being the director of your life. You're
Mhm.
just commanding it. And waking up and knowing what you're going to do is so easy. Having your gym clothes set, I know I'm or at 4:30 I'm up and there's my sneakers, everything's right there in the bathroom, like ready to go. You don't have to think as much like make all these
Well,
decisions.
and
Yeah.
you have more control of your life versus other people controlling or dictating your life or how your day is going to go. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with is that because they're not taking ownership of their life, they're allowing other people to dictate it. And that's why they're unhappy. And that's why they do the things that they do and they make poor decisions, whether that poor decision is drinking, whether it's like binge watching or it's having an affair with another person as well. So I just really want to encourage everyone to kind of lean in and take ownership of their own happiness because at the end of the day, you can have an amazing life but it starts with you.
Really does. And I do want to say to you, I want to thank you so much for being here. You're an inspiration in so many ways. You're an inspiration in your willingness to grow and look inward, and then combine that with your, I'm trying to think of the way I would put this, but it's, you're streamlined, like I can feel it. You're organized, and there's something about clarity, in a person and it's nice. I see all of that in you. What I would love for you to tell all of us is where they can find you, about your new book. About, I saw your downloads and stuff. I'm going to get them. Anything you have to offer, I think, is very valuable. So
Yes. So once again, my passion project is called Stroke It, and it's your guide to enhancing every relationship, especially yourself. That Stroke It title was inspired by the discovery when I was talking with my husband about the affair, and he's like, "Oh, she made me feel good, and she listened to me, and she was present." I was like, "Oh, so she stroked you." And so that is the basis of my entire project. And that's because she was present, she validated him, she listened to him. And those little things that I wasn't doing. And then I thought about that, and that's like, oh, that's like my entire life, not just my marriage. So the book is called Stroke It. It's all about professional and personal development. And I do have a podcast. You can download that anywhere that you download podcast. And I have quickies, which are on Tuesdays. It's one concept, it's 10 minutes or less. And on Thursdays, I have guest episodes where I feature amazing individuals similar to you, Allison, where they share their life stories and their struggles and their wins. And they share lots of great resources, tips, and tools. And I've had several of your guests as well on my podcast. So I would definitely encourage everyone to lean in and download that. And you can get the book, you can get all the free downloads at my website, which is Jenny Alday with one L, Townsend.com. And I'm on all the social media platforms as well. And yeah, it's been great being here. I love sharing my story. My goal is to help people. I felt very, very alone when I was on this journey, and I don't want other people to feel alone. And there's so many of us that are in the same situation, just people are not talking about it. So I want to be the voice for all those that feel silenced.
yes, I really appreciate you. And I think that you have a wealth of information and growth that can really, really serve so many. So just so you know, all of this information, everyone, it's going to be in the show notes. It's going to be accessible. And I just want to encourage you to like, share, comment, subscribe, do all of that for just to be connected to Jenny. And you could do that here too. Without any further ado, it's a wrap. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the show. I just want to say to you that we are all together a part of the Mission Awake, a mission that's going to stop the mediocrity that's plaguing all of us. So if you got something here today, I ask that you would be a part of this mission and you'd share it with whoever you can. Take a screenshot of the show and share it on your Instagram. If you are looking for me, you can find me on social media platform Instagram, Allison Answers, or Lager Counseling Services. And give us a review and subscribe if you could to YouTube, Allison Answers. That's where you're going to get a lot of content. I drop stuff every day, goofy stuff, all different kinds of stuff. 5-minute videos that just get you moving in your day. Have a great week. See you next time.